A lot of high achievers look successful from the outside. They're producing, they're leading, they're building, they're delivering. But underneath all of that, many of them are tired, disconnected, and quietly trapped in a pattern of hustling for worth. And that is the real problem because when achievement becomes identity and output becomes self worth, even success starts to feel really, really heavy. Today's guest is Paul Crick, creator of the Grace Framework and founder of the Elevate Partnership. His work is focused on helping high achievers and teams replace relentless hustle with a more grounded, emotional, intelligent, and sustainable way of performing and leading. And so he describes his work as being for people who are done hustling for worth. And the Grace Framework is a practical catalyst for clearer thinking, better collaboration, and a more human way to excel. So, this is a conversation about pressure, identity, leadership, performance, and what it really takes to be brilliant without burning yourself out. So, I would love to go straight into the real issue. Paul, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so great to be talking to you. So, you describe your work as being for high achievers who are done hustling for worth. That
hmm
is such a sharp way to put it. So, what does hustling for worth actually look like in real life?
it's the chasing status and affiliation because we were told chasing and status and affiliation was what we should do. So sometimes I'll meet clients, and sometimes during the conversation they'll say something like, "You know, I'm not sure how I got here." And then we have a conversation that says, "So what did you do?" And what happens is, they grew up, they went to school, they learned to study hard, they then went to college, they were great at college, they got good grades, they went on and got a good job, and a very well paid job in a profession that was growing, and then it was kind of like, well, what do I do next? Oh, I settle down and I have a family and I get a mortgage and a house and a family and a car and a private education and I accumulate stuff. Um, and then there comes a point where they're in this rhythm, and as it's getting harder and harder, because the environment is so uncertain at the moment, although I think it's always been uncertain, really. Um, but I think it's changing in such a way that is disconcerting that people are reevaluating their relationships to the things that got them to here. In terms of thinking about education, do I want to do this job forever? Um, I think I think that's what it looks like. I think it's saying yes. It's your brain saying yes when your body says no, and not listening
Yeah,
to it.
absolutely. How does someone know when their ambition has crossed the line into like over identification with performance?
Um, they're usually sitting on the sofa at 11 p.m., nursing an extra glass of wine or two,
Hmm.
over and above what they want, or they're working really late. They have a sense of dread on a Sunday night. Oh, what's next? God, I've got to be up at 4 a.m. to catch a red eye or an early flight somewhere. And this is 6 months I've been doing this now. Why am I still doing this? I'm tired. I just want to be at home. Um, I want to eat an omelette, not lobster and steak. I want to be with my family. I want to tell my kids stories. I want to stop snapping at my partner. I want to have some fresh air. I want to find some joy in my life because there doesn't seem to be much joy, or it doesn't feel like it at the moment. All those things, and it's different for everyone, but some combination of that. It often escalates to, I remember there was one particular vacation I went on, and we went to Spain, and I literally slept for 3 days. I was that tired. My body just said, "No, you're not doing anything. You're too tired. Just stay here and sleep." That's a good signal. I think it's when you start to get illnesses that won't go away, that won't heal. You get a cold that just goes on for an ever and ever and a day, or a cold and then it disappears for a day, but then it's back. Or you get headaches, or you get stomach issues or indigestion issues. All of your body starts sort of knocking on the door and say, "Are you paying attention and listening?" Because if you don't listen, every time I try to get your attention, I'm going to use more marked and obvious ways of getting your attention.
Yeah, the body will tell you, the body will make you slow down.
Yeah.
Society shows, this image of success as being so brilliant and beautiful and freeing. Yet the cost that people sometimes put themselves through in order to get there is incredibly challenging. Before we hit record, we were talking about our own personal, relationship with our personal lives and business, and it can be really, really challenging. And yeah, it's like the cost of building your life around proving instead of just being.
Mm.
So what is that cost?
The cost is usually your health, and your joy, your relationship, how you relate to life, how you move through the world, how you shape your presence with people you love. Um, that's usually the cost. Something strains somewhere to the
Hmm.
point where point where it breaks. And
Hmm.
when it breaks, it's unpleasant, it's upsetting, it can be very damaging, physically, emotionally, and mentally. And you don't have to go there.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a time when the hustle culture was sold as being the path to success. I feel like society is it's getting better and is
Mm.
really pushing for the balanced life. Um, why do you think that relentless hustle stops working, even for capable, driven people?
Well, it stops working because just neurobiologically we can't. It's like driving a car down the freeway and having your foot on the gas pedal and leaving it there. You know,
Hmm.
you watch the needle stay in the red. Well, if it stays in the red long enough, something's going to burn and something's going to fall off the
Hmm.
car. And we're no different as human beings. We're flesh, blood, and bone. But something will fall off, something will break, something will burn out, without a doubt. Now, I do want to make clear that this people go, oh, does that mean we shouldn't do hustle? And it's kind of like, no, 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 no. Hustle sprints are necessary. There are times when if you're doing a cutover from one system to another, that can be a week's worth of work, and it can be round the clock, and no rest for the wicked. But then there's a downtime afterwards. That's the point. If you look at professional athletes, elite performers, they will tell you the most important part of their training is the recovery.
Hmm.
And relentless hustle is no recovery. Hustle sprints have recovery built into them. That's okay. Yeah. But if you don't do the recovery, then you will burn people out.
Yeah, I feel like most people who are in that hustle culture are disconnected from themselves. So they're in this chronic state of depletion. And then they lose their ability to be creative. And I mean, they lose their relationships and it damages their relationships with them, their partners and their teams. And it's like being in a constant state of survival.
It is. It
So
is neurobiologically. We shut, our focus narrows, the prefrontal cortex switch parts of it off. So we just don't have an availability to all of the perspective and wisdom and capabilities we have. We have this narrowing focus all the time that gets narrower and narrower and narrower. And, we get brain fog and all that kind of thing. That just means we can't really think as straight as we're capable of doing. And I, I, I understand the pressures. If you've got someone snapping at your heels saying, "I lent you 500,000 to build your business. I want my 500,000 back and then some, and I'd like it back next week, please." That's that is a set of pressures that we succumb to and we believe. But the truth is, um, even with that financial pressure, it's not pressure, because if you crash and burn, you start again and you pick yourself up and you learn. Yes, you start with nothing, but you can start again. And I have start again with more or less nothing. Um,
mhm.
and what you learn, the thing I learned was there's this expression that you hear, which is rock bottom. I hit rock bottom. What everybody focuses on is the bottom. It's kind of like, oh, it's terrible, terrible down at the bottom. And it can be. It can be depressing, soul destroying, all those things. But the thing we forget is we fell onto rock.
Mm.
And when we're on the rock at rock bottom, nothing, nothing can shake you. For some reason, you become totally invincible in terms of the stuff that would normally get thrown at you. Oh, don't do this, or this is a pressure. You go, no, that's not a pressure. A pressure is not being able to feed your family. A pressure is not having a roof over your head to be able to stay warm. Those are real pressures. Pressures are what you're seeing. Not that I want to particularly go there in this conversation, but what you're seeing around the world in terms of people being displaced. That's pressure. You know, not selling a widget as fast as you want to. Yeah, it's a kind of pressure, but it's not real pressure. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. The people who have struggled the most in life, I feel like, are the ones that are the most laid back when it comes to stress, right? Like it's, I mean, I've also been through a lot, and those places when you what you call rock bottom, it can feel really scary and isolating. But it's in that rebuilding that I've made my foundation so strong. And so when you
Yes.
have that strong foundation to rely on, nothing can shake you. It's like having the best building in a tornado, right? This foundation that's just unshakable. So the little things become less of a stressor. But the reality is we all need to live and survive, and have a warm space to sleep at night.
Hmm.
Um, so the word grace can sound soft or abstract if people don't understand what you mean by it. But you have this framework that is very practical. So let's define it clearly. What is this grace framework that you're working with, and what problem is it designed to solve?
So the grace framework is exactly that. It is something that helps you think about how you're behaving. And this came about when I was at IBM and I was teaching consultants what you might call soft skills. And we teach them emotional intelligence, and we'd have slides and flip charts and all kinds of things with information on it. And we teach the abstract of emotional intelligence. So if I asked you what emotional intelligence is, you could probably give me an answer that I'm pretty sure would be right. Most people can. Something about a stimulus, a response, a space in between, and the longer the space, the longer the more choices you can make. That's great. And then I ask the question, so how do you do it? And then it usually goes quite quiet. Oh, I don't know. I've not really thought about that. And when do you do it? Ooh, well, I'm not sure I do. I know the answer, but if I get my boss shouts at me or something goes wrong at work or I'm asked to stay late, I'm not sure I'm as emotionally intelligent as I could be because I've got all these stresses that have built up over the last 6 months. And I might have a short fuse or be snappy or just tired because I haven't had enough sleep. And that's what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give people a mechanism that says there's a way of thinking about this that isn't abstract. So if I want to go and develop muscles, where do I go? I go to the gym. What do I do in the gym? I sit down at a machine and I do reps. I practice a skill. And what I'm trying to do is to say, so what are the skills you need to make a conscious decision about negating relentless hustle? Doing something different instead of being caught up. It's like the old tape recorders. You'd push play on a tape and the music would come out. Well, in human beings, sometimes the tape button is already pushed, and you go, "Where's that music come?" Oh, it's me. And you go, "I need to turn that off." And then no, I'm too busy. I can't, or I can't find the stop button, or I can't even find the pause button, let alone the stop button. So for me, it's a way of doing that. And I wanted to design something that wasn't a 7 steps to heaven model because in my book
Right.
there isn't such a thing. I also didn't want it to be a do it my way because my way is the right way because it isn't. Your way is the right way. You have to find out what's for you. So I'll give you an example of that. So the G, every letter stands for something. So G is for grounding. R is for resolve, A is for acceptance, C is for create, and E is to embody it. Now, we all ground in different ways. So I may say to you, Lisa, how do you like to ground yourself? And you go, you know what? I like going outside. I like sticking my hands in the soil and I like doing gardening. And that, literally, that's how I ground myself. Other people may go, you know, I like going for 50-mile bike rides at the weekend on my own, just out in the countryside, pedaling away, observing the scenery, being on my own. That's how I ground myself. Other people may say, I like to cook dinner or I like to be with friends. So there's no one right answer. What matters is what is it for you that you're making a conscious choice that goes, I'm not centered. It's like I'm not on the horse. I need to get back on the horse. What is it that gets me back on the horse? And therefore you pick something for you. It isn't me saying that. Now I can give you some clues. I can go, well, people have said this and people have said that, and I actually do this. Some people will do a marathon. Some people will swim, 10 miles in a swimming pool. It doesn't matter. Does it ground you is what really matters. Resolve deals with the issue of goal setting. So the first rule of goal setting, the first rule of coaching, set a goal. And you go, really? Yeah? Are you sure that's where you want to start? And whose goal is that? I want to get a job. I want to be CEO of a big company. Okay. Why? What's driving that? What's the identity issue? Are you doing it because you want to make an impact? Are you doing it because you want to right a wrong in an industry? Are you doing it because you see an opportunity and you can use that opportunity to create something that grows a community, that changes how we do work, that allows people to have work life, makes a difference, makes a positive difference in some way, shape, or form? Or are you doing it just because you can get loads of money and loads of power and you've got this status and this affiliation? Um, just think about that. Whose goal is that? And is every goal a short-term smart goal? Most smart goals are really small and contained. Yeah,
Mhm.
I need to go and get some shopping. Okay, I can set a smart goal to do that. That's okay. I know where I need to go. Is it measurable? Yes. Is it achievable? Realistic? But if I set a bigger goal, like I want to climb Everest, yeah, that takes more than smart goals. That takes goals broken down into different into different segments. And yeah,
Right.
when you get it into a small enough segment, you can do that. So, and how tightly do you hold on to that goal? We can all think of sports people built their entire career, amazing, glittering career of sports as an athlete, and then they put that on one side and they go, well, who am I now? Because they're so tied up in their identity, or they win the gold medal, or as Johnny Wilkinson, one of the England rugby players who kicked the winning goal when England won it years ago, he said, the next day I was depressed. How can I be
Mhm.
depressed? I kicked the winning goal. That doesn't make sense. And then so you have this thing called the identity hook. And if I'm not ambitious, if I'm not relentless, then who are you? And the problem is a lot of people aren't comfortable sitting with that question. So they stay busy. In fact, the busier they are, usually the less comfortable they are. They're avoiding something. You know, I don't want to sit with myself. I'm not comfortable on my own. I don't want to look in the mirror. I don't want to look at things like that. So that's resolve. And then A is for accept. And there's three levels of accept. There's acceptance of self, there's acceptance of other, and there's acceptance of the system that we're in. So most of us, the easiest test of that is if I said, go to the mirror, look in the mirror and smile and smile yourself with the mirror, how many of you would feel comfortable looking in the mirror and smiling at yourself, looking directly in your eyes for any length of period of time? Some will, some are lucky and they've been encouraged to do that. But I would suggest that a lot of us, and certainly those that are in the relentless hustle trap, aren't comfortable with that
Mhm.
because they look at the world through a particular set of lenses. And the reason they're busy is they don't want to take in what's around them and usually themselves. So self-acceptance, can you reintegrate all the parts of yourself that you've either pushed away or suppressed or pushed down to come back and be whole as a person, because that's the first thing. Because when you can do that, and that's things like, men, when are you going to get comfortable with your feminine side? When are you actually going to understand that it's not something you wear and have biologically. It's something completely different, and it's one of the most powerful things you can access. When are we going to
Mm-hmm.
stop? When are we going to stop doing the hero's journey by default? Because actually, the heroine's journey is a tougher journey. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
bring everything back in, just being yourself. Society will tell you, buy this product. When you buy this product, you'll be this, and you'll be accepted, and you'll be happy. Do this, and you'll be, something great will happen outside of you. And yet, all we have to do is accept the miracle that is us, which sounds kind of woo-woo until you sit down and you think about it, and you kind of go, who am I not to be brilliant? I am already brilliant. Why do I need to go and chase these things to be even more brilliant? It's like, I'm enough. And usually people chasing relentless hustle are dealing with that I'm not enough. I know I did it.
Right.
I did it for a long time. And it's quite a sitch, and you have to do quite a lot of work to do it. So there's self-acceptance. There's then acceptance of other. When we meet someone usually with an agenda. Usually it's to answer. Usually it's to put forth our agenda. Or it might be, I want you to like me. Yeah. So I'm going to have a whole stack of things and behaviors that kind of go, right, I'm ready. I'm going to do all the things and contort my language, my posture, my behavior in such a way that by the end of our interaction, I'll feel you like me and I've achieved my goal. Well, that misses a whole raft of opportunity. Is that accepting other person? No, it's not. Acceptance of other person is when we meet the other person and we're still and we let them come to us. I think that's such a powerful phrase. It's Nick Askew's phrase from Soul Biographies. And he talks about, can you let the other person come to you without putting your stuff in the way? Because only when you do that, then you accept the other person.
Right. Interesting.
And we get on together and we work together better. And a good work culture is a work culture when we can all show up whole and accept each other as we are. Not a lot of work cultures do that. There are some, but they tend to be small community cultures, this, that, and the other. But even there, things are going. So acceptance of other becomes really important. It's easy to be kind to someone that looks like us, talks like us, thinks like us. But if I meet someone that isn't, how long can I hold my arms wide open enough to welcome you and accept you as you are?
Mm-hmm.
And you've only to think of conflict anywhere right now, and it's because we're not holding the arms wide open enough to sit down and have the conversation. Because at one level we're different, but at another level we're more the same than we are different.
Absolutely.
And we forget that because it's taught out of us because we listen to things, people, news, read stuff, and we let that influence, and then we don't think enough because we're too busy. We're in this relentless hustle. My brain doesn't have bandwidth time to go, I really need to think about that. It's kind of like I need to move on to the next thing. And then if we've got all those things tucked away, that means that we have an ability to slow down. And when we slow down, we have a wider perspective of what's happening in the world. We have greater access to our faculties. We have greater access to other people's faculties because if we accept people as they are, we're going to ask them, I can't do this. I don't know how to
Mm-hmm.
do this. Do you know how to do it? Do you know anyone that does? I need some help. That's quite vulnerable at one level. You think about work culture, and particularly in certain sectors, then I mean, it's getting better, but generally speaking, we're still at that place where, because we don't accept each other and we're all posturing and we're all doing this and we're all not willing to admit that we're all making it up as we go along, we're doing the best we can with what we have, then we say, uh, yeah, I know how to do it. I'll come back. I'll come back when it's done. And then it's not done. So it allows us to create, fearlessly is such an overused word. What I really mean by it is the blank piece of paper kind of create, not the cut and paste.
Mm-hmm.
Because the challenges we've got now the thinking that got us to them is not the thinking we need to get out of them. Yeah, we need a council of grandmothers at the UN. Silly idea at one level, not a bad idea at another level, because let's face it, it's not working. How's it going right now? Let's think about that. Um, so that's great, and then embody is there's um there's an expression I think Brené Brown surfaced it first from the Asaro tribe, um, and they have a saying which is knowledge is rumor until it lives in the bones. So it's okay to know it, but until you can do it, it's kind of like I do martial arts, and you watch all the Bruce Lee movies, read all the books, and watch all the videos and instruction videos, but until you step on that mat, you're not learning. So you have to learn by doing, and you have to learn through consistency. So that's the GRACE framework. It's circular, so it means you can start at any point where you can, where are you? What's going wrong? Oh, I'm not consistent. Oh, so you've got an embodiment issue. Okay. What's the issue there? Oh, I'm not grounded. Okay, so we can go around the circle and we can go across the circle. And sometimes it's a bit like Twister, we can have our two hands on certain parts of the framework and a foot on the other and go, okay, now what makes sense to deal with? So, as I say, it's a lens by which you can look at relentless hustle and go do it differently.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
so much gold in there. I think one of the biggest issues, and I love that you pointed that out, is that people don't really know who they are. And so you take away your job title, you take away all of these titles that you give yourself or you earn, you achieve, and then who are you? And so I find it so interesting that the people that are the most successful and they achieve these huge achievements, like you said, winning a gold medal, and then the next day they wake up and they're like, now what? And it's like their whole world is destroyed and torn down, which is it's so interesting. So I truly believe like figuring out who you are as a human being is the most valuable thing that a human can do.
I think so. To know yourself and to know what is you and what isn't you, and to be willing to say, this is me and you're you, and I disagree with these things, but you're still a human being. We can disagree, but we can still accept each other. I
Mhm.
think I think when it steps into harming other people or trying to get people to your way of thinking in a way that's violent and destructive and dysfunctional, or whatever word you want to use, then you've kind of overstepped a line. And I think we are at a place where we need to think about how we live and work more consciously because the old model seems to be in collapse.
Mhm.
The data says the data says it is. There are various little tipping points that you're starting to see, and you're also starting to hear a different kind of conversation about kindness, about you know people looking at work and going, well, it's about impact, it's not hours. You know,
Mhm.
and yes, I need a certain amount of money to be able to live, but then and provide for my family. But do I need a squillion to to do that? Well, probably not. Yes, I want to be comfortable, and everyone has a right to that. And everyone has a right to be supported if they fall through the net, because some people fall through the net through no fault of their own.
Mhm. Where did your framework come from for you personally?
Um, through a gazillion mistakes I made through most of my life, and sort of learning from that process of learning. So I started my journey in 2007. In in fact, I was writing a piece for Substack that was kind of a little bit of backstory, and I was thinking, how do I explain my journey without sort of being overdoing it? And in the year 2000, I weighed 226 pounds, which is just under 20 stone, 120 kilos. And like a good storyteller, I went, those numbers don't mean anything to anybody. Yeah, it sounds a lot, but what's that reality? I thought, well, 226 pounds, it's about 50 bags of sugar. And I thought, yeah, but people can't visualize that. So I typed into Google, I said, what common object weighs about 120 kilos. I loved the answer. It said an adult giant panda. And I went, that's it. That's the description.
Uh-huh.
And
Wow.
if you've ever seen an adult panda sort of be clumsy and lazy, that was kind of me in 2000. And the truth was, I sat on a bed in a hotel after a day of consulting, looked at the wall, and said, "Is this it? Because if it is,
Mm,
it sucks, and I'm unhappy, and I have no clue why. I'm fat, I'm smoking, I'm not healthy, and yeah, I don't really like my job anymore, and I don't like my family, and I don't like this." And then I realized how angry at the world I was. And then I just went on a very long journey, which is still continuing to sort of address a lot of layers within that. But I suppose the breakthrough really came through when I started doing Aikido at 53, which is nearly 10 years ago now. And it just all clicked. You know, there are practices there that are completely counterintuitive. Um, so the idea that if you want to go fast, you slow down. If you want
mhm.
power, you relax. And I had this thing and I went, we're living life backwards. You know, we think if to go fast, we've got to go fast. No, 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 no. And you'll hear the Navy SEALs talk about it. You know, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, and it's so true. I've seen it, I've felt it, and I understand it. And so there are principles through that particular martial art that sort of underpinned it. And I was going through my hard drive a while back, and I came across something I'd written in 2017 because I was a coach by then. And of course, being a coach, you need a signature. You need a signature program, don't you? Because you're not a coach if you don't have a signature program.
Yes.
And I got this piece of paper out, and I'd literally built a kitchen sink and then thrown everything in it. Because I looked at it and I went, "Yeah, I know what you're trying to do, but my gosh, you weren't really thinking, you were thinking about the inputs, not the outputs. You were not thinking about what's the relief that you're guiding people towards. Um,
Right.
what is that transition, that transformation that people want to make? You know, they're in pain over here and they want to be over here where they're in less pain and they're not experiencing no pain, but they're experiencing more joy in their life doing the things they want. Because it's a short thing, you know, life is very short, and I guess once you cross the halfway mark, that becomes clearer, and some of that became clearer. So that's where it came from.
So when you were building this framework, what did you learn about the misunderstandings that high achievers have about the relationship between identity and performance?
People aren't their behavior. It's as simple as that. And people aren't
Hmm.
their identity. I mean, we could talk about we could have several podcasts with several very learned, clever people more clever than me, to talk about what is self. Um, but I think it's just about getting to a place where you're comfortable with, you know who you are, you know what you like, you know what you don't like, uh, you know what you're willing to tolerate, you know where your boundaries are, and you know where you'll enforce those boundaries either consciously or unconsciously,
Hmm.
or explicitly, or you'll detach with love. You go, okay, that's you, that's fine. Not my thing. I'm going to step away. Have a great time. You know, we'll connect again when we next connect. So I think it's being very comfortable in that skin, and not trying to live up to this image of perfection or whatever this cut out cardboard thing is that we're supposed to be, and just stepping into that wholeheartedness, because there's a real joy to it. That until you do it, it's difficult to just describe. It's like trying to persuade your kids to study hard. It's kind of like, me, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Counterintuitive.
And that's the thing. It's all counterintuitive. It's
Mm,
hard for me to explain to someone the journey is worth it, but it absolutely is. I'm not just saying that. When you can talk to many of my clients, and they'll tell you the journey they went on, which is not my journey, was worth it. And yeah, there were one or two bits that were a bit tricky and a bit scary, but having someone beside them that said it's okay. It's okay to be a mess. It's okay to not get out of bed for a couple of days because you try, you're going through this dark night of the soul or whatever it is. We all have it. It's part of the human experience.
Absolutely. So then what do you think changes when a person stops using success to prove their value?
Um, well, I think they value themselves for who they are first.
Hmm.
They um, they save a lot of money. They
Hmm.
don't have to have to spend their way. They don't go and get the next car because the next car is the thing to, oh, I need that. Or, they're not queuing to get the next piece of technology. And trust me, I'm a shiny toy boy. I like shiny toys as much as anyone. But there does come a point where you go, why would I put a Rolex on my wrist when I can get a really good $10 watch
Hmm.
that tells the time? And that's enough for me. Everyone's different. People will have different criteria. But it's the people that wear it as an understated. It's part of my identity. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. The question is, has it hooked you? Has it got you? Because if it's got you, that's when it becomes challenging because you're always running to try and keep up with it.
Hmm.
I remember this guy. It sounds so stupid. I got my job at PricewaterhouseCoopers. And I remember being in the lift on the way down after the interview in tears because they'd said, yes, you've got the job. Because it was a way I was able to tell my dad I'd done something good that he could be proud of. And the first thing I was in London and I went to New Bond Street and I heard that consultants wore crisp Swiss cotton shirts with a double cuff. So I went searching for Swiss cotton shirts with a double cuff. Came out with four, spent a ton of money. Yeah, they were nice to put on. But I look at that now and I go, what were you thinking? Yeah, nobody else noticed. It was just the story in my head that said this is what you do. And you kind of go, yeah, I suppose it's the folly of youth, um, possibly. But it was also an identity. I was hooked. And I was spending money I didn't have. That was the key. I'd put it
Oh
all
my
on credit.
gosh.
I'd put it all on
Yeah.
credit cards. And that that's a different episode of the podcast.
Well, I think the most brilliant thing that you said in that whole story is, well, there's a few things. It's the validation that you were looking for your from your father. It's like you achieved something, but it wasn't for you. It was like now my father will be proud of me. And then the stories that we tell ourselves. So it's the story that we're telling ourselves about everything. It's perception on things in life that make us act and feel a certain way. And so if we can be aware of the story we're telling ourselves, like everything is a story. Someone just brilliantly mentioned The Truman Show. I don't know if you've seen that movie
I
and how
haven't
that
seen it
whole
yet.
movie is such a brilliant depiction of what the world is actually like because everything is just a story and perception. And if you can bust through that, then you can bust through the illusion and you can see the truth in everything. And that's a scary place to be as well, because it's almost like everything is meaningless in a way,
Yeah,
right?
in a way it is, and in a way it's not, because it gives you a sense of freedom to go on my terms.
Yeah.
I'm going to give me the pen. I'm going to write the story now that I want to write, so that when I get to my last breath and I read the last chapter, I go, that was a great story.
Hmm.
What's next?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So you talk about your framework, the GRACE framework helping teams work together better by reducing the profit erosion caused by misalignment, miscommunication, and conflict. So that is really powerful in business. So how does the absence of grace show up inside of a team? What are you seeing?
I'm seeing people not keeping promises. I'm seeing people saying one thing in the room and doing something else in the corridor. I'm seeing sabotage. I'm seeing people politicking and screwing each other over one way or another. Um, I'm seeing people focus inwards, going me, 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 me. and not paying a lot of attention, dragging their heels over stuff, not admitting they need help, not pushing other people to this, not holding to a higher standard, getting away with what, the bare minimum of what needs to be done. Stuck in patterns, people say, yeah, 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 I'm going to change. And then, still busy, 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 busy. And they're not changing. People who study stuff and they go, yeah, yeah, that was a great course. And you get the evaluations afterwards, and it's kind of like 5 out of 5 all the way across. And you go, I've learned now to go, I'm not sure I believe that. Um,
Mhm.
and then not seeing anything happen, it's almost performative. And it's like, well, we did our best in the course and we rated it because if we do that, you won't look at us closely anymore. And yeah, that bit's over and we can get on with going back to what we know we're comfortable with. So you'll see things like that. You'll just see miscommunication. You'll see and hear, someone will say something and someone will misinterpret it because the person transmitting the message hasn't checked that the message they intended to send was the message that was actually received. They just assumed it was there. You see people tell instead of sell, command and control. Where do you want to stop? You see all kinds of bad behavior.
Yeah, I
People
think the
have.
integrity piece is huge. That I think in my experience in leadership, if the person in charge is not doing what they're saying and saying what they're doing, I feel like that throws off the whole entire team.
Well, it means you can get away with it too. So if you're the guy that changes their mind every other week, then it's like,
Hmm.
well, there's no point in, people will say, well, there's no point in talking to him or bringing ideas because he'll have changed his mind anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
Or he won't listen to me. Yeah. Listening and being heard is another big one.
yeah, huge. The the whole trying to do the thing where you try to make a decision, but you go for approval, and the boss goes, well, let me tell you how it is. And
Hmm.
then by being the bottleneck, you create learned helplessness. It's kind of like, well, it's almost like, well, daddy will fix it.
Hmm.
Because it's hard to sit down and wrestle with some of the challenges to go, I don't know. Someone will say, I've never done this before. And I know we're all different. Yeah, but have a go or find someone that has done it before. Get them to teach you.
Hmm.
Get AI to teach you. We're in a place now where if you're willing to ask a few questions, you can learn quite a lot very, very quickly. And then, but then we see differences. We see difference of skin, we see difference of religion, difference in outlook in terms of sexual preference, all that kind of thing. And then we use it to judge people. There's the
Hmm.
accept thing. There's the accept thing that goes straight out the window.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's make this practical for the people listening out there who
Mhm.
maybe they're very aware that they're operating in overdrive. So what are the first ways to start applying the GRACE framework in daily life?
Get your diary and 2 mornings a week, clear it.
Mm,
That's the first thing. Clear it. Turn your phone off. And then decide what you're going to do with that time because you will have full presence. Whatever that is. Yeah, you can just book it as a meeting. And if that's a walk in the woods because you're going for some good quality thinking time, or it's your reading time, you're going to go and read something that nourishes you or teaches you something, or you're going to have an experience. Look at the artist's way. It's kind of like book a date with yourself. Go and do something that takes you out of relentless hustle. And I don't
hmm.
mean go and have a pizza and 6 beers. I mean, go do something. What's the thing that brings you joy? Usually, what I do is I'll get a piece of paper and a pen, and it's blank, and I say, right, money's no object. You can't fail. Write down what you're going to do in that time, and you can see instantly in their physiology they know exactly what it is,
Right.
and I don't know what it is, but I know they've accessed it.
Hmm.
It's kind of like, oh, I want to go for a bike ride. I want to go for a walk. I want to take my wife for a coffee and spend quality time with her. Yeah, I want to be with my partner. I want to take my kids, go and do something with my kids because it's grounding.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's part of the recovery piece of high performance. So
Hmm.
put some recovery time in your diary.
That's a great tip. I love that. So if
It's
someone
easy, it's
is list,
practical.
yeah, it's easy. Exactly. Exactly. What do you think that the successful person on paper, but they're exhausted in reality? So they're successful on paper, but they're actually exhausted. What do you think the first truth they need to face would be?
Oh, there's many, but it's a simple question of what is the payoff for, or actually a better question, for what purpose do I do this?
Hmm.
Not why do I do this? For what purpose? Because there is a purpose to it and there is a payoff. So the purpose of doing consulting was I'm busy. Like I have the status and affiliation, the big salary and the markers of success. The payoff, so I can get my dad's approval.
Right.
That's a powerful payoff. And the payoffs are usually really powerful and several levels deep.
Right. Yeah.
I
It's to
think,
be exposing the truth of the situation, I think brings so much clarity of perspective, right? Why are we doing the things that we're doing?
yeah, because in this day and age, you don't necessarily have to do them. And I know that's a very privileged statement. I need to say that. Some people have to do some of the things because they have to do that, because of their circumstances and because there aren't always the opportunities. I'm not talking to those people. I'm talking to the people who are running themselves ragged because trying to fill a void that'll never be filled.
Mhm.
The only way you
Absolutely.
the only way you can fill it is sit beside it and go, that's a void, and I know where it comes from, and make friends with it, and then know how to deal with it.
Yeah, Paul, thank you so much for the conversation today. If you could leave high achievers with one message about grace, ambition, and sustainable brilliance, what would it be?
You are enough, and I see you and I hear you. Go tell that to everyone around you that you care about,
Mm.
and see what comes back.
Paul, thank you so much for the brilliant conversation today.
Thank you, Lisa,
It
for being
was
so
really
generous.
raw and truthful and honest, and it was powerful.
Thank you for being such a generous host.
And to our audience, what I appreciate about this conversation is that it gives high achievers something they rarely get permission to pursue, that excellence without self assurance. So it reminds us that grace is not weakness. It's not softness in an unhelpful sense. It is a disciplined, practical way of relating to ourselves, our work, and other people so that performance stops costing us our peace. So, Paul Crick brings us such an important message right now. You do not have to hustle for worth forever. And the path to brilliance may actually begin when you stop performing for permission to matter. Again, Paul, thank you so much for being here. And thank you to our audience for tuning in. We will make sure to have Paul's information, including his website and where to locate his GRACE framework in the show notes for you. Until then, take care and ask yourself the hard questions. It's worth it. Bye for now, everyone.